just saw your talk. You were talking about how stories connect people, and we write stories, and the Jewish people are known as the people of the book, of the story. How do you think that those sacred books have influenced the way we talk to ourselves and we tell stories nowadays?
That's such a big question. So I think, I was just talking to somebody about this, a younger girl earlier, about the fact that there's so much that we don't know. And there is something about the words that get put on a page. So if you think about letters are just letters, and the space between words is just emptiness. And yet those words come together and connect you with things that hit. And the more people that share their stories, the more we have an ability to understand how people feel. A lot of people talk right now about how we exist in our own little echo chamber. And I think that's happening more now than ever before. And so the more that we encourage people to not only tell stories, but read them, the more we're going to have a greater understanding. Even if you don't believe the politics, or even if you have a different perspective, it means that you start to build more of an empathy, more of a sense of who people are, what they care about, how they feel. I think the hardest thing is not only just writing the stories down, it's then encouraging people to learn about them and listen to them, and that's harder.
You were talking about how we just have to look, and every day is harder and harder because we have so many platforms where we are being encouraged to speak up and to show. What do you think the role of the media can be or has been in this environment?
What it should be versus what it has been, maybe. A lot of people are telling us they're not feeling represented and they're not feeling heard. And I've been in media for a long, long time. And I think there's a lot more people coming together to say we have a greater obligation to make sure more voices are represented, and that we really understand who we're actually really communicating to. And we've clearly done a very bad job of giving the right level of representation to the right number of voices. And so there are a lot of us coming together to say we have to change that. We have to change the way that women are represented, that girls are represented. We have to change the way that different diverse populations are represented. So I feel more positive about where we're going versus where we've been, because I actually think it's been, you talk about echo chamber, I think it's been a very few small group of stories that have been told repeatedly, rather than actually using media as an incredible platform to try and get other people to see diverse perspectives. So if you think about digital now, everyone can stay in their own space and they almost never have to interact with the other space. That's the danger of where we are now, is you could almost never see another perspective or the side of the story. That's why I think there's a different obligation to say we have to find a way to break down some of those echo chambers. Otherwise, we're going to become more myopic, not less. We're going to become less represented. So I think the obligation now is to say people really need to tell broader stories, to try and bring in diversity of viewpoint, not just a singular viewpoint. So it's big. It's more about where we're going than I feel where we were.
And a question that I like to ask writers usually, what is a story?
Oh, I think a story is something where, okay, so there's a great piece I read once where if you imagine this is everything that's happening in life, right, all the pieces down here, a story plucks the right things to tell a narrative that elicits a response. So it's not, story isn't, I brushed my teeth this morning. Story isn't, I went for a walk with my dog, let me show you a picture. Story is about actually being more sparse and finding the right things that help push the narrative on and have a very purposeful thing that they're trying to elicit. And I think that's what's interesting right now around, everybody's out there talking, but not many people are telling stories. And it's a very different thing, which is actually fewer words, better stories told, and being more purposeful about what it is that you want to say.